Welcome back to Ears to Hear Podcast at earstohearpodcast@gmail.com. Appreciate everybody listening, especially because us as three dudes getting to chill and talk about the gospel, there's nothing more cathartic for me in my life right now than this.
It is nice. It is nice. It's nice.
How many people get to vent and chat and learn like this?
Everybody that wants to send in a small and simple thing.
There you go.
Do what you godless animals.
Oh, well, today we picked last week we picked the topic for today.
Yes.
And me going into it assuming, well, I probably know everything, right? So let's just have a chill week. Go through a week of a lot of eye-opening instead.
We all went a very different route, too. That's what's kind of cool about it.
As per the standard quo for us.
Very much. So today we're speaking on a word of wisdom for the benefit of the Council of High Priests, assembled in Kirtland and the Church, and also the saints in Zion, to be sent greeting, not by commandment or constraint, but by revelation and the word of wisdom, showing forth the order and will of God and the temporal salvation of all saints in the last days. Given for a principle with promise, adapted to the capacity of the weak and the weakest of all saints, who are or can be called saints. Talking about the word of wisdom.
Yeah.
Word of wisdom.
I think this is a fun topic because there's not a single person who can't relate to it or relate to the struggles of it.
Yeah, yep, that's true.
Or complain about it.
There you go. It's nice that in the Temple Recommend Questions, they added a word to this one. Instead of just, do you obey the word of wisdom, they added, do you understand and obey the word of wisdom? Because there's a lot of that out there too. So that's kind of what we're getting into today is what is the understanding of the word of wisdom?
Yep.
So I start off when I, look at these, I kind of start off very base level in my head of like, well, we know we don't drink coffee and tea and alcohol and smoke cigarettes and because we're all so idiotic, we had to have the later correction of also don't do other drugs.
Don't do, sugar bugger. Don't do any Mary Jane, right?
Yeah. Well, and the word of wisdom has been constantly added to, clarified, softened, commanded through its tenure since it was revealed in 1833. It's had a long and storied past.
Right. I also think it's super interesting that it wasn't mandatory for a very long time.
No. That's it. In fact, it was funny as I was studying the history of it. So you have 1833, Joseph gets this revelation, right? Basically in consequence of just having a question because of all the smoke that was in the school of the prophets, right? But what's interesting is that Joseph himself still he had beer and he drank alcohol. And in fact, there was, what was his name? Amass Suleiman recounts a time where Joseph literally preached a sermon about the word of wisdom and then literally after went about Nauvoo smoking a cigar. So there was the quote. I gotta read the quote. He's like, "This was just one of the many instances in which Joseph tried the faith of the saints with his peculiarities." I thought that was an interesting way to put it. So I mean, right there, and it's interesting. Like I think someone else, they got brought up on charges of disobeying the word of wisdom, and he's like, "Well, I was only doing it because Joseph was doing it too, but I guess if that's what you guys want, So there's this weird like back and forth that happens with the saints, really from the moment it's given, really up until like 1850 when Brigham brings it up as a commandment to put the church under commandment, and even then there's a period of time
there was an adoption period. Yeah,
Brigham himself kind of really struggled with tobacco apparently, and there was like this undercurrent of like, well, if you're going to do it, just don't do it publicly. Try to keep it under control. It was. I might as well just keep going with what I got here. It was like 1902, it became a requirement for the Temple Recommends, right?
Yeah.
But Joseph S. Smith, he encouraged stake presidents to be lenient to old men who still chew tobacco and drink, and old women who drink tea.
Right.
There's this. He like basically said, be a little lenient there.
Well,
but then
it's not the biggest deal. It's not the most
really
serious
not.
commandment ever.
It's not. But you get to 1921, and Heber J. Grant then really enforces that. Yeah, it becomes like written into the law, and he does away with all
exemptions.
Exactly. I wanted to say indulgences, but that has probably a bad connotation, considering the Catholic Church.
even today, you know what I mean? Like, I had a mission companion who his dad was on chaw, right? He had to have his tobacco in his mouth type thing, his chewing tobacco, and that was a real struggle for him, you know what I mean? And so when he was getting ready to go through the temple, his dad had to go talk to the bishop, you know, and it was a known thing. It wasn't a surprise to the bishop, you know what I mean? But he was like, hey, I want to be able to see my son. His bishop says, okay, well, you gotta, you know, not do it for at least 2 weeks, you know what I mean? So he'd go 2 weeks, he wouldn't do it.
The baptism standard.
Exactly, yeah. So he you know, was able to go into the temple and stuff, and then right after that, I think he picked it back up, you know what I mean? And that's no judgment on him. That's addictive crap, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
seriously.
But I think that there is a level of your bishop's going to work with you on stuff, you know what I mean? Especially over stuff like that. Because like you say, Kimball, it's like if you're beating the crap out of your wife, or you happen to have a little word of wisdom problem, like, I'd rather take the guy that has the word of wisdom problem, you know?
Of all the sins to be accused of,
exactly.
this isn't so bad.
Exactly.
In the scale of serious commandments, it's not the biggest one.
No.
It's not even in the top 10. You know, and it's funny too, because it is the most outwardly obvious.
Right.
It's the most openly criticized and judged culturally.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, which I think is part of our test.
I was just going to say that. I think you're exactly right, because if you go, so I went down a weird rabbit hole on, I can't remember what day it was in the week, but I wound up watching this huge presentation on Hasidic Jews, right?
Okay.
And I didn't know much about these guys. I didn't know that there was so many different sects of Jews and stuff. I thought you were just a Jew. You were a Jew.
No. It's like same thing with the Muslims, where it's not official that there's all these different sects, but there are.
Totally, yeah. And the Hasidic guys are like the most adherent to every letter of the law, right? Yeah,
they're looking for excuses to do some extra law.
Totally. And so they've got those curls, right, that come down and stuff. You know, they're not supposed to cut. And hearing the reasoning behind it all was fascinating, you know. And I won't go into it because I'll go off on a tangent, but but it was really interesting to see like all this stuff. And they're like, and they brought in an outsider, right? And he was asking questions. He's like, so why do you guys do that? And they're like, well, the Lord told us to through our prophet, right?
Yeah.
And that's what we have in the Torah. So the Torah tells us to do it. You know what I mean? And that's really what the word of wisdom is, right?
Yeah.
I don't know about you guys, but like I saw a lot of people try to use science to describe the word of wisdom. To justify it.
Yeah. And that's where the whole caffeine problem came from.
Yes.
Because people are like, oh, tea and coffee have caffeine.
Yeah.
And so therefore we shouldn't have caffeine.
Oh, yeah.
And then you get this weird statement from Grant, which he then recants. And so then we have this undercurrent of caffeine for so long. And I remember one of my companions talking about, the reason why we don't drink coffee is because of tannic acid.
I heard that exact same thing.
And it melts your insides and it turns your stomach into like a purse, know. And it was like, Elder, no. The reason we don't is because the Lord said so.
Exactly.
Yep.
I mean,
are there benefits? Sure. Are there benefits on the opposite end?
And we don't really know all the reasonings why certain things were or weren't prescribed. Like go back to Peter, right? Why was it all of a sudden pork became okay to eat, right?
Exactly.
I don't know.
Exactly.
I can't tell you, but I just know that all of a sudden the Lord's like, hey, what I've decided to make clean, you cannot make unholy, right? And so they break the food traditions, right? Yeah. And I think it's the same thing here. And that's what, it's interesting. Like, I was trying to find, I don't know if you guys ran into this, I was trying to figure out why green and black tea are on the list.
Right.
Because the church has no official statement on it. But yet, as well. You talk to any of the 12 or the 15, they'll tell you green and black tea are against the wisdom.
They've made that distinction.
And so that's why I'm like, I was trying to, it was weird because I'm like, so is this like a relation thing? How do we know what it is? And I think there's so much of that. People we're trying to figure it out, which is fair. Yeah. We want to understand why, but in trying to figure it out, we make connections saying that this is how it is for these reasons, but we don't really know.
and I think that it's one of those things where like it goes back to the Hasidic Jews, right? Because it does go back to the Torah, to the Old Testament, right? Yeah. Where they were commanded to have those long curls on their head.
Right.
Yeah.
They were not supposed to shave those off, and because that's what the Lord said, right?
Yeah.
Thus saith the Lord. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Let my people go.
The Lord
but do they really need to perm them and curl them?
You gotta look good. If you gotta do it, you gotta own it.
Yeah, man. I would straight Sephiroth that.
I know, right? Exactly. We're going Final Fantasy with this stuff.
Yep. I'm going to look like an anime character if I have to wear one of those.
That's fantastic.
Oh, man.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah.
It's funny though because we get into a lot of these don'ts, and I think that's again the base level thinking, right? I think that people get stuck there.
Yeah.
And they just live there. Their whole life is just, what do I not do? It's total like telestial glory stuff.
Well, I remember Adam Ferrara. He's a comedian. He's like, I'm of the Catholic persuasion, which means if it feels good, stop. And I think I remember thinking, and Mormon, But I think that's what it is, though. I mean, it's a joke, but it's the fact that we get hung up on the stuff that we see the world, and it looks like, oh, Starbucks looks pretty nice, or we're like, I wonder what it'd be like to just be able to cut loose on the weekend and have a glass of wine,
and a snort of cocaine,
A kilo of Colombian bam.
And so just natural human response, we're focused on the things that we can't have because the grass is greener on the other side.
Right.
But instead of focusing on what it is, the Lord has said, hey, you can do all these things, though.
Right. And there's a whole bunch of that in the Word of Wisdom.
Yeah. In fact, more of it talks about what you can do than what you can't.
Well, and I mean, there is a very real character building aspect, and the Buddhists and stuff have this figured out, right? Where it's like, if you can master yourself, I mean, Jordan Peterson talks about it all the time, if you can master yourself and be in control of yourself, it bleeds over into everything else in your life,
Yes, it does.
So if you can, I mean, they took it to the extreme, to the unhealthy extreme, where they only want like a grain of rice for a month or something like that,
Yeah.
Hitting beyond the mark there.
Yeah.
But there is a very real aspect to that principle of, look, if you can say, you know what, everybody else around me is drinking beer, alcohol, whatever it is, Mountain Dew, whatever the case is, if you can be the only guy who doesn't and you have control over that, you're going to have control in every other aspect of your life. Yeah. It really does bleed over.
It's about self-mastery.
It is about self-mastery, exactly.
And I think that self-mastery is enhanced with the good things that it talks about. Yeah. It's funny, too, because I listen to different nutrition people obsessed about, have this supplement and your life will be perfect. Have that supplement and your life will be perfect. And it's like, man, if you could just eat good food on a regular basis in a correct proportion for your diet.
Yeah.
Like the Garden of Eden state was a consumption of perfect food and you could live forever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we live in a fallen world, so no matter what, that corruption enters in. But that consumption of good food will improve your life.
It's McDonald's, right? Wendy's?
Should we go back to...
Now that gets into the secret combination.
I was going to say, the verse that we stopped short of with due to of conspiring men, the designs of conspiring. Let me just read it.
Read it.
Behold, verily, thus saith the Lord unto you, in consequence of evils and designs which do and will exist in the hearts of conspiring men in the last days, I have warned you and forewarned you by giving unto you this word of wisdom by revelation. And then it goes, starts going into all the stuff that we shouldn't do, right? Yeah. But I think, we talked about this a little bit last week, but is it? I don't think it's by accident that America is dealing with the obesity problem, and probably McDonald's is the most busy food item on any given day, right? Like there's probably some. There is.
When you look into the actual secret combinations, God is literally saying secret combinations. What are secret combinations that he's talked about? It's the when Moroni talks about awake to your awful situation. The secret combinations, I think, are very simple to just assume it's just a gang or a mafia selling hard drugs.
Right.
Right? Mm-hmm. But is that really secret? We're all aware that they do it. So what is really a secret combination? It's when McDonald's literally introduced chemicals into their food to stimulate addiction.
Yeah.
Well, and two, like if we go... Did we read 5 yet, or did we just read 4?
We just read 4. Didn't read 5.
Okay.
Go ahead and read 5.
That inasmuch as man drinketh wine or strong drink among you, behold, it is not good, neither meat in the sight of your Father, only in assembling yourselves together to offer up your sacraments before him. Verse 6, and behold, this should be wine, yea, pure wine of the grape of the vine of your own make. So there, it gives a distinction there, right? Yeah. I honestly think that if everybody had self-control, verse 6 would be a lot more enforced than it is today. Because we don't use grape juice for our sacrament and stuff like that, right? And I think that in history even, when they had wine, really the reasoning behind it was they would put it through that alcoholic process and then they drink it right afterwards when it was ready, right? Yeah. Somewhere along the line, somebody figured out that if you really ferment this thing, you can get buzzed, right?
Go-go juice.
You can get you some go-go, and you can feel wonderful, right?
But it would be a more impactful symbolism of drinking the blood,
right?
Yeah,
right.
Totally, yeah.
If there wasn't secret combinations who are using this stuff to murder people to get gain, because that's the secret combination, right?
Mm-hmm.
The secret combination has always been Satan will benefit you with stuff in exchange for murder.
Mm-hmm.
And what murders more people than alcohol?
Yeah, alcohol, tobacco, all that stuff, man.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Hard drugs.
Yep.
I think it's also significant. It says of your own make, meaning you know what's in it.
Yeah, you made it yourself.
You don't have to worry about someone slipping a roofie
yes.
in there,
And that
metaphorically.
is the secret combination, If you don't know the ingredients of a thing, then when you drink Coke, it actually has Coke in it.
Yeah,
exactly.
The original formula did.
Yep.
The snake oil salesman. And I think that might be why, or at least lend to, why the word of wisdom became more and more and more of a big deal.
Mm-hmm.
Because the secret combinations are becoming more and more corrupt in their manipulation of food products and fill in the blank.
It's tailor-made for us in our day.
Mm-hmm.
It really is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You can see why no other people in the history of humanity had to really have this. Because, Abraham got drunk at some point, you know what I mean? After the ark, and he watched, how many people die, I don't know, drown and stuff, and probably hurt him and stuff. I think I'd want to get drunk too.
Yeah, you mean Noah, not Abraham.
Or no, yeah, sorry. No, not Abraham. But
Just to clarify for those people who got confused.
Noah and the ark.
Yep.
But it's one of those things where it was.
You read what happens when he gets drunk, and maybe there's a good reason to not get drunk.
I'm sure. Yeah.
you look at what
Ham stole the garment.
Yeah. There's Just go read your Bible.
Yeah.
There's some stuff that happens when he gets drunk, and it's kind of a good reason not to drink wine.
Pissed off Noah cursed Ham and his generations for a long time. But it's true when you think about. What did Jesus turn the water into? He didn't turn it into grape juice. He turned it into strong wine. You know what I mean?
And the best one.
The strongest, yeah. They were like, whoa,
it's got sting on it.
You're bringing this out a little too early.
We're supposed to get drunk an hour or two from now.
Exactly. You're supposed to bring the watered down crap first.
Yeah, exactly.
But it really does show. It's you know what? For us in our day, we have to have this in place to protect us.
Yeah, we really do. Because, again, all these secret combinations, if you don't really know what you're doing and you just live a life at the surface level of shopping at stores, and even just the genetic modification of food messes with us.
Yeah, totally.
You know, the genetic modification of chicken introducing hormones and all that, it actually is proving to influence when and how early kids have their maturation process.
Right.
Yeah.
You know, they're getting hormones introduced into their body super young, and then it forces their bodies to mature in a different way.
Mm-hmm.
So, again, like if in an ideal world, we would prepare all our own food. It's not possible in what we're living with, but man,
and I think
that would protect us.
I think we have to do, like, I think that this literally, the word of wisdom is like a lifeline, because like you're saying, Kimball, there's a lot of stuff, like, it's anything that we eat is untouched by genetically modified stuff. You know what I mean? It's just how it is, or it is touched. Yeah.
It's hard to find anything.
I got 4 hours of sleep. Sorry. Everything has been altered from its original state, right?
Yes.
To the point where it's like, well, in order for us to have all these crops of wheat, we've genetically modified and selectively bred these things to produce like mad, right?
Yeah.
But if something comes along that is a blight to that one plant that we have, we're screwed, because it wipes out everything.
Exactly.
You know? But I think that adherence to the word of wisdom, regardless of that, because we can only do the best we can. Like, I can't go out and grow my own wheat right now.
Yeah.
I just can't do it. You know? Don't know how, number one, but I don't have the room. It's not probable for us in our today's civilization to make that happen.
Yeah.
You know? But if we do adhere, like, even if we're eating that wheat that we can get, that I'm sure the church even puts out, right? In the home storage center that you can order offline or online. Gosh, I'm struggling with opposites today. It's opposite day.
I messed with you earlier, didn't I?
Apparently. I keep saying the opposite.
You're broken.
But even if we adhere to it using that stuff, there will be a blessing that comes with that.
Yeah.
There will be a blessing.
You know, and one of those same secret combinations that I'm aware of is the FDA.
Mm-hmm.
And you think, wait, like, how's the FDA a secret combination? So sugar as an industry...
How is it not?
I know, right? Sugar as an industry is so freaking gigantic in its money production.
Yeah.
And then they came along with, and I forget if we talked about this in a podcast or not, they came along with this food from China that, hey, 1 grain causes 300 times the sweetness of a grain of sugar.
Mm-hmm.
So you could supplement your sugary drinks with this instead of sugar, and all of a sudden...
A lot healthier.
Yeah, this is same taste, but 300 times, or 3 divided whatever, less sugar.
It's good.
Super good for you.
It does taste good.
Yep.
And the FDA refused to acknowledge that it was a food.
Yeah.
So that it couldn't be introduced into foods and drinks.
Yeah.
Because
it's a
messes with the industry.
Yep. You're going to upset a lot of very powerful people with a lot of cash in their pockets. Right.
And that is the surface level of the corruption of the FDA.
Right. Yeah.
I mean, you get into stuff. I was listening to one guy talk about, and it was an extension of like MK Ultra and radio and microwaves and things like that.
Yeah.
He apparently went and talked to a king in, I think it was Nigeria, some African country. The king was compelled, not just asked, but like compelled to put all this technology, like cell phone towers, things like that, in his country. And he said, the first thing we saw, ants stopped climbing on all of the plants. Something about the way these frequencies mess with stuff, ants stopped climbing on plants.
That's weird.
The plants then didn't have the ants climbing on them. Well, the ants weren't eating the plants. They were keeping all the other bugs off. So then all the plants started getting eaten. 10, 20 years later, they can't even grow their own food. And everything is imported in. From the mass farm growing in America and on some other big nations. And the guy basically that was getting interviewed was like, this king told me, my country is lost to me. I control nothing because I can't feed my people. We have to give all our resources and military bases and all this stuff to these foreign nations because I accepted this technology. I mean, that's where the secret combinations get crazy, is when governments know that if they mess with the food supply, with that kind of thing in a country, they can take over the country eventually without firing a shot.
Yeah.
And that's not unique to our civilization in the history of humanity. Like when Hugh Nibley talks about this, when right before the flood hit, why God used a flood is incredibly symbolic, right? And it's not just the fact that it was a baptism for the world. It was also a direct response to what the people at the time were saying. Because they said, oh, we've conquered nature. They weren't afraid of God. They knew that there was a God. They just weren't afraid of him because they said, we've conquered nature.
Yeah.
Now, what does that mean? I can only speculate, you know what I mean? But I imagine...
Not even God can sink this ship.
Yes. Yeah. Not even God could sink this ship.
And then the Titanic goes down.
And then the iceberg.
Yep.
But, I mean, I imagine... I don't think that we're the first ones to get as far as we have technologically. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And regardless of what kind of
There's
technology
some evidences
they had,
for that.
There's some weird stuff
in
that you can uncover.
A lot of Tesla kind of theories.
Big time. With Egypt and stuff.
More than the wires obsession.
Those pyramids weren't tombs. No. They weren't.
Oh.
And I mean, but going back to that, you know, whatever technology they had, they felt so secure and prideful in it that they said, we've conquered nature.
Yeah.
That's what that reminds me of when you say that. You know what I mean? Hey, we understand these things so much so that we've conquered the ability.
Yeah. We can start tweaking stuff.
We can start tweaking stuff. And I'm sure it'll be fine. You know?
Yeah.
Won't have any adverse reactions to that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I didn't mean to interrupt you.
No,
that came to my mind.
No, it's a total connection. And I think, too... one of the things you talked about that was probably the most significant impact of the word of wisdom is self-control, right? I think a lot of people don't realize how not in control of themselves they are because of word of wisdom issues.
Yep.
You know, the thirst or craving for stuff, sure, but also the fact that these foods actually weaken not just our bodies but our minds. Mm-hmm. I mean, they really do condition us. So, back again. So, conspiracy theories became a thing for my study this week. And one of them was MK Ultra, which, if anyone, I'm assuming most people listening probably won't know what this is, because I really didn't. After World War II, part during, but mostly after World War II, America had this great idea. Let's invite all these German scientists over to America and have them invent systems of mind control.
That was Operation Paperclip, right?
Yeah, Paperclip. Yeah, where they basically reappropriated all of the great thinkers from the German nation.
And this is legit. This is
you can go look it up.
You can look it
it's
up.
Not even I imagine parts of it's redacted. But.
Yeah,
it's definitely studyable though. So as they started to do that, the stuff they got into, super creepy. But it's the entire reason the drug LSD exists.
Yep.
Yeah.
What they were trying to do was not just, hey, can we have people have hallucinations? It was mind control. Literally, can we control how and what people think, say, do?
Yeah.
Hypnotism was involved.
Yeah.
Enhanced by drugs.
It's like Jason Bourne kind of stuff.
Exactly. Yeah. And that's what I'm getting at is they were trying to create super soldiers and assassins who then, upon capture, would not remember anything.
Yep. The best cyanide cap ever, right?
Yeah. Their brain would literally shut down at a command word. I mean, hypnotism and all that side is split personalities. All of a sudden, this stuff is becoming a reality to me, and I had no clue or thought it was crazy talk.
Yeah.
Like a month ago. So
it does sound like crazy until you talk to someone who's been through it.
Exactly. When you talk to the actual survivors, when you study how Robert Kennedy was assassinated by a guy who literally doesn't remember assassinating him.
Yeah.
And then there's a video of a British guy who basically recreates the experiment and successfully pulls off, though the person didn't realize they weren't real bullets, an assassination through hypnotism. Mm-hmm. I mean, this is a legit thing that most of us, oh no, that's not possible. Agency's too important. God wouldn't let that happen. That's the mantra, right?
Mm-hmm.
Interestingly, the church is against hypnotism.
Yes.
Couldn't imagine why.
But this guy did it without drugs. He recreated that experiment of hypnotizing a guy till he got him to assassinate someone on a stage. It was Stephen Fry that was the victim.
Oh, okay.
With blood packs in his chest.
Stephen Fry.
A good guy.
Yeah.
But he actually pulled off recreating, I can turn someone into an assassin.
Yeah.
And then the guy literally didn't remember doing it. He had it. He was just programmed through all these stimulus and stuff. And that is how Satan intends to conquer and rule the world, is through mass compulsion, hypnosis. It's the purpose of our television shows being as degraded as they are, is because they're hypnotizing us to accept some of these cultural problems.
Well, I mean, even, just to go along with that, too, there's even, like, I don't know if you covered it in school when you did your graphic design classes and stuff, but there's ways of marketing subliminal things to you, and it's crazy.
It's all color-based.
Yeah. This isn't stuff that's conspiratorial. It ties into it.
Yeah.
But it's very freaky. Like how they can make your mouth water and stuff like
just
that.
by colors on a wall.
Yeah. And that triggers things in your brain that make you want something, right?
Yeah.
And it's compulsory.
That's why the red and yellow in McDonald's, it's colors that make you want to hurry so they could get you in and out of the store fast.
Totally. Well, and like when we're designing a button for a website, there's a certain way you do it that we've been taught, right? Because otherwise you won't notice it.
Yeah.
And you can add a sense of urgency to it. You can, you know what I mean?
In fact, they use the word call to action.
Yes, a call to action.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's interesting stuff, and it's legit. Like, it's part of what we do.
Our subconscious.
Yeah.
Yep.
One of the
me and Curtis are involved in the conspiracy.
One of the deep things was a reference that I read that the pharaohs of the way back in the day, they understood the magics, and that magic was psychology.
Mm-hmm.
It was mind control and hypnotism. And that they understood the sorceries, and sorceries were the pharmaceuticals.
Yeah, pharmacy.
They were drugs.
Yep.
So these things, not only are there good and bad uses for everything, but we live in secret combination times. Yeah. So all of these things are being perverted. Yeah. And that's what we're being told to be prepared for, is watch out for these. Watch out for your government, and they're the secret things. They're the things you're not aware of. And us revealing them probably puts us on a list.
Yeah.
But
it makes us look crazy.
It does.
Yeah.
Because the world's been conditioned to think, oh no, governments would never do bad stuff to people.
Well, and two, just going back to what you were saying, it's like using those pharmaceuticals and stuff. So there's an authorized way to get revelation.
I was going to go here too.
Yeah. There's an authorized way to get revelation and to tap into beyond the veil stuff.
Yep.
And there is an unauthorized way to do it.
Yeah.
LSD.
That is the unauthorized way to do it. If you have known anyone who's a member of the church who has dabbled, it's a very spiritual experience to do drugs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Very spiritual experience.
And it permanently alters your body.
Totally.
Well, there's a reason why taking a Percocet feels like feeling the spirit.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, exactly.
There's similar...
Put you on cloud nine.
Exactly. There's similar good feelings there.
Mm-hmm. There was an investigation of a satanic cult, and the one satanic cult, every member had to be on Prozac because it was a suggestibility thing.
Yeah.
Wow. That's crazy.
Well, and if anybody's watched The Queen's Gambit on Netflix, like, they used to give kids tranquilizers because it made them more pliant. Yeah. Like, especially in big orphanages, they give them straight up. They got kids addicted to tranquilizers because it made them easier to control.
Yep.
Yes.
And that's why we have an opium crisis right now.
Exactly.
It all ties, like, it's crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But if you get a prescription, it's okay.
Yeah, then it's fine. You won't get addicted if you have a prescription.
And this goes back to kind of what you were saying, Alan, that there are authorized and unauthorized ways of doing everything. Like in the gospel, right?
Absolutely.
Sex. We did law of chastity. Like
Yes.
we talked about that. There's an authorized
Yep.
and there's an unauthorized. And even here in the Doctrine and Covenants, and this is just a very small snippet for the time. I mean, if it were to be expanded for today, they could probably keep going. But like it says, hey, use tobacco for these things, not for these things.
Yeah.
You know, use these things for this, not for this.
Right.
And that's the appropriate way to do it. And in very many ways, the Word of Wisdom is about not abusing
Yes.
the natural resources God has given to us for improper use.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Who thought of smoking that? You ever think about it? Who was the first guy that was like,
I'm going to roll this up.
I'm going to smoke it.
I'm going to breathe it in.
Yeah, I'm going to breathe it.
Maybe it happened during a fire.
It
Like,
had to. He's like, oh,
An accident.
yeah,
Like,
but get out of the house. Hey.
you know,
Hey.
it's great
funny
to
though,
chew on. It must be
Yeah.
even better to breathe.
right. But it's funny too because
Then again, people are vaping today, so you know
yeah,
they're
right.
vaping cotton candy.
Oh my God.
So I guess it's maybe not that surprising.
and those are very untested, very long-term study, not tested.
Well, supposedly, that's
And
the stuff that
killing
they are doing testing on is it's worse than
Yes,
cigarettes
exactly.
and stuff.
Yeah.
But a lot of us, we think, well, someone said it's okay, therefore it's okay.
Right.
Yeah.
Right?
Right.
Especially when it comes to government.
Yeah.
So there's a family. They're the
The government does not have your best interests in mind, people.
So the Sackler family, they're the ones who invented or built companies selling OxyContin. And this drug kills more people than heroin, cocaine combined.
Holy cow.
They literally kill more people than drug cartels. But the drug's FDA approved.
Wow.
So we, again, base level, oh, drugs are bad, secret combinations, that means just the drug cartels and mafias and gangs. No, the secret combinations are actually secret, and they're in your government, and they're selling you drugs when you go to the hospital. And you have no clue that this is the transaction of Satan. You kill people to get money. And there's a movie, I think, coming out really soon about OxyContin because they had that lawsuit and all that. Hollywood decided to do a movie on it, finally kind of trying to expose it. But these people were super corrupt. And they realized they could get massively rich
Yeah.
off of addicting everyone to these drugs.
Yeah. And they have.
Yeah. And it's hard too because a lot of the people who get addicted to these drugs can afford to put a lot of money into their addiction.
Yep.
Yeah. Yep.
And so it
usually how it
stays
works.
it stays secret because of that. And that, like I say, we've hit on this several times. This is the secret combination kind of stuff that God is warning us and putting this warning in place against.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did you guys know that there was a time when you could have, because we're talking about strong drinks, as says verse 7, again, strong drinks are not for the belly, but for the washing of your bodies.
Yeah.
So there is back in the day, especially like the 1700s, 1800s, when they would do beer, a lot of times it was for taste.
Yeah.
It would have some, an amount of alcohol.
People like the taste of urine?
I know, right? Yeah. I've never tried it, but I've smelt it, and it reeks.
Yes, it does.
And the way it makes you smell, like my army buddies, we'd go on post, right, or off post. I mean,
Yeah.
and we'd go watch a movie or something. I think we watched Alien vs. Predator or something, and my buddy had a brown. He looked like an idiot. He had a brown sack with alcohol, right?
Yeah.
And he's drinking it, and he stunk, man. I was like, dude, you stink, man. He's like, what? What's the matter, man? I just smell fine.
I love you, man.
You're a good guy. Dude, you stink.
Yeah.
But it's one of those things, you go back and you start to see that they used to do beer, a mild beer. There was a mild beer.
So
Yeah.
I'm gonna point because I was gonna ask this question because I didn't notice this till doing this
I
week.
went down this whole rabbit hole of it. It's fascinating.
So verse 17 it says, "Nevertheless, wheat for man, corn for the ox, oat for the horse, rye for the fowls, and for the swine, and for all beasts of the field." And now this is the kicker. I had never noticed this before. It says, "And barley for all useful animals, and for mild drinks, and also other grain." And I'm trying to think. barley and mild drinks. The only thing I could think of was beer. So is this
There is another drink too.
Okay, so I'm like, how do you interpret this? Like, I'm not sure what to do with this.
If you've ever heard of, you've heard of postum.
Yeah,
that's barley.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cafix is barley.
Yeah.
Right. It's and it tastes like coffee.
Mm-hmm.
It really does taste like coffee. And if I know people that will literally drink, Mormon people, that will drink the Cafix and they'll take caffeine pills with it. It's like, huh.
To each your own.
Yeah, it's like, to each your, whatever. No judgment here.
Yep.
You know what I mean? I'm over here drinking my Diet Mountain Dew. I'm not going to judge.
So there probably was a time where a mild beer was acceptable then?
And it's making a comeback today.
Interesting.
So there's a lot of people, you can look them on YouTube, and they'll teach you how to make your own mild beer.
Huh.
Now, I think our bishop isn't going to want us to drink mild beer. I have no idea how this ties in.
Might be a tough one. I guess if you want to do the whole, I understand the word of wisdom, verse 17 says, I can have a mild beer.
Matter of fact, I brought you one, Bishop.
Here, try it.
But there is and it was made for taste. They would totally go out of the way to make it taste good. It wasn't nearly as alcoholic at all.
Okay.
It's probably even on the level of O'Doul's, honestly.
Okay.
Like the alcohol list, not alcohol list, but like I don't know what
it's non-alcoholic beer.
It's non-alcoholic beer.
Yeah.
Yep.
It's got about as much alcohol content as that does.
Yeah, everyone's told me if you want to know what beer tastes like, have an O'Doul.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. And so, no idea how that fits in, and I'm pretty sure we were not allowed to do that now.
Yeah.
But there is a mild drink version, of that stuff.
And this might be a good for me to shoehorn in here that like the first half of the Word of Wisdom, everyone knows.
Right.
Yeah. Everyone preaches. It is hardcore written to us.
They focus
the
on
second half of the Word of Wisdom, it's like whatever. It's like everyone peters off.
I know, right? Yeah.
And I actually kind of want to know what you guys think about it. I thought it's interesting when Brigham put them under commandment to live the Word of Wisdom. It's like the first 8 verses, right? And then it's after that, it doesn't seem to matter. Mm-hmm. And I wonder why
back then
why was
they
that?
were living the good side too. They were growing their own
I guess
food.
That's a good point.
Yeah.
They were consuming the land.
And I guess you'd have to eat meat sparingly because if you eat meat every day, you don't have your chickens and your cows in your field, right? So I guess you'd have to be careful about how you use that resource.
And you did dry your meats and things like that. That they had meat regularly.
Yeah.
Like the original verse didn't have that comma in there. So you go to, is it verse 18?
No, it's not. I know which one.
Where is that?
About. 13, I think, is wait.
There you go.
I guess we skipped
yeah, we kind of jumped around.
So yeah, we've kind of hopped around.
I imagine we'll have some disagreements of opinion on this, but go ahead.
So and this is like I eat meat every day, so I'm not going to die on this hill.
Yeah,
but I am going to engage you guys here because I think it's fun.
My mission president brought this up because of problems with the missionaries, right? Yea, flesh also of the beasts and of the fowls of the air, I, the Lord, have ordained for the use of man with thanksgiving. Nevertheless, they are to be used sparingly. So, keto diet, right?
Yeah. So only eat that,
right? And it is pleasing unto me that they should not be used only in times of winter or of cold or famine. So he had the documentation that showed that the earliest versions didn't have a comma after used.
Yeah.
So in other words,
which changes the meaning a little bit.
Yeah, it means, hey, it's pleasing unto me that they should not be used only in times of winter, cold, famine.
Yeah.
So don't just eat them when you're starving.
Yeah.
Eat meat, on a regular basis, which is nutritionally actually good for us. You should have, according to what I've seen the best studies of, is meat 1 meal per day is really healthy.
Yeah.
But not every meal the only thing you eat, which drives your body into.
Right now.
But some people do that specifically because that's actually healthy for them. There's a guy I was listening to on the radio who talked about it was Jordan Peterson.
Yeah. That's who I thought of when you said that. Him and his daughter.
Yes. They whittled down their diet to literally just red meat.
Mm-hmm.
Really?
And that's all they ate. And all of a sudden, 50 different health problems evaporated.
Yeah. Huh, interesting.
And, sometimes you have to purge that way.
Yeah.
And then maybe you can add one thing or add, you know what I mean? That's what they had to do. They had to purge down to that. and then build up from there, where they tested to see how their body would react to introducing other foods.
Yeah.
But
They set it to the baseline.
But almost his entire diet is just red meat.
Mm-hmm.
And some people, that's how it's got to work. But I think a lot of what we're dealing with in our day is, again, back to the MK Ultra experimental messing with people's bodies. All this technology.
We hypnotize the cows to get them into the slaughterhouse.
Exactly. So
come here, cow. Right. Into the slaughterhouse.
But our government uses this technology and compelled all these countries to adopt it because it was a way for our government to listen to everyone's conversation everywhere at all times, including everyone else's like secret services. Right? They're FBI's and CIA equivalents. Because of the way technology works, like Motorola's phones, for example, all these other foreign nations, if they use Motorola phones, their conversations were being listened to by the American government. Mm-hmm. And they had no idea. But the way that this technology was developed was very unsafe. And it eventually creates genetic defects. And so as it influenced the society, it's maybe not the kids, but it's the grandkids and the great-grandkids that you have these genetic problems, which is a huge part of why in our day we have such a range of health problems. Massive more range of health problems and cancers and all these different things than 100 years ago.
Yeah.
It's not just because we're living longer. People still lived long back then. We've introduced so many chemicals, so many radio waves and electrical problems into the atmosphere of how we live.
On top of crappy food.
On top of crappy food, that we're actually perverting our makeup as a species.
Yeah. Well, I like they use that pesticide analogy for like the food chain, right? Where, maybe you just have a little bit on the ants, but then you have, the one above it that eats 10 ants, and then you have the one above that eats tens of those things, and so then you get this accumulation of these pesticides.
Exactly.
And we're at the top, right, for a lot of these things. So we're eating the highest amount of all this chemical crap that's been used to.
Which is why everything causes cancer in California.
Yeah. Don't eat tires, people. It's not good for you.
It's interesting too because it's like we and I think I've mentioned this in one of the recent podcasts where we have solved world hunger, right?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
The United States alone produces enough wheat and corn and stuff to feed the world easily,
Yep.
with being able to store some serious storage afterward, right?
Yeah.
I mean, so much so that we put ethanol in our fuel.
Yeah, we burn our food.
We burn our food, right?
Yeah.
But and I think that there's a level of God influence there in that because the population couldn't grow unless we had food to support it, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So in order for him to send some spirits down here, especially last days stuff, I think there is some good to being able to make a crap ton of wheat. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because and I've done studies into this as well. Where like what in Joseph Smith's time, they basically had einkorn. That's basically what they had, and it's way harder to harvest than our stuff is today. Harder to grow, harder to harvest.
Don't get as much food per
Yes,
energy.
more temperamental. You know what I mean?
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Stuff like that.
That's why they had so many crop failures.
Yeah, totally. That's why they had to, lean on their animals a lot.
Yeah.
But I think that there is, obviously it has been tampered with in a very negative way. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So while, it's a blessing that we can put out that much wheat, because my food storage is full of genetically modified wheat and corn and stuff. You know what I mean?
That's what you can get your hands on.
That's what I can get. Absolutely. You know what I mean?
Go back to the Singles word thing. That's why we bless it before
That's
we
why
eat
we
it.
bless it. Yeah.
Those hamburgers are wrong. That's why we bless
That's
it
how
before
I
we
like
eat
it.
I love that show.
But I think the point being made that eventually we can't. You know, there's no way for us to get pure harvest anymore.
I can't grow einkorn.
Yep, we can't.
No.
I'm an idiot.
Me and my wife tried to grow vegetables this last year. We got nothing.
Yeah.
Literally everything didn't make it.
We had a
Literally.
spontaneous Garden of Eden event. We had a tomato appear in our flower garden And this tomato plant turned into a monster.
There you go. Tomato sandwiches.
I know,
people.
right? But in a very real way, like new heaven, new earth, the world will just abundantly produce so much food that the lion won't need to eat the lamb.
Right.
Yeah.
It'll sit next down to the lamb because its belly's full, not because it has no hunger.
Ken Ham talks
For
about
lambs.
that. He's got some cool stuff on that.
Yeah.
Totally. Really cool stuff.
And I love like the people I hear talk about Zion, what they've seen, and how it's like the fruit grows to the point like that it's fully nutritious. Your body just uses it up completely. There's no waste, and everyone starts, coming back in harmony because the corruption's been seeded out of it. Like
Right.
someday. Till now, yes, I'm going to get a Happy Meal on the way home from work because I don't have time to make dinner for the kids, right? So to some degree, we're having to deal with living in the times that we're in.
Transgression. You're not guilty of some major sin because you bought McDonald's yesterday.
Exactly. Yeah.
Oh, I was going to engage you guys in 13. Hold on.
You should
Go back.
Yeah.
Rewind. So, verse 13.
Yeah, we traveled. I was waiting for.
Sorry.
I'm going to say I actually think I might more agree with you on this than you think. But go.
So, because I've seen people, I actually engaged somebody in this, and he was so pissed that it made it fun.
You're literally going after people's sacred cows.
Yes. And it was funny because it started out as a throwaway. By the end of it, I wanted him to I went overboard in making myself sound like I was a vegetarian.
Yeah.
And I'm not.
Yeah.
I'm not, right?
Yeah.
Because I think that it verse 13 is exactly how it's written and said. I think that we are to mainly be a people that lives off of wheat,
Fruits,
grains, right? Nuts, whatever.
Yeah, the ideal.
All that stuff. And that, you dip into the animal stuff during winter, cold, or famine, right? Now, I say that understanding that the church has a dairy farm where
The largest
Yep.
dairy farm in North America or something?
Like they package meat, right?
Yes.
There's a meat packing plant that you never sign up for when the sign-up sheet comes out.
Say everyone ignores. Everyone looks at the floor when they ask for volunteers.
Everybody passes it along.
And all us working people you want to win right during work hours. Sorry.
Yeah, that's what I always tell
Sorry.
them. Yeah.
Grievance right there. You want people to do the meat packing plant? Don't do it right in the middle of work.
Right? Yeah,
Anyway.
It's like you can't do it on Sunday either, so it's like, I'm sorry, man.
Yeah.
I wouldn't mind going.
Yeah.
But I think that it's so... And going back to Noah, we know that he that commandeth not to eat meat is sinful,
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
Those two things are existing here at the same time.
Yeah.
And where I stand on this is that we are supposed to mainly be using as airy as they make you, beans, you know what I mean? Eat a lot of beans, eat a lot of rice, a lot of that wholesome stuff.
Yeah.
I mean,
Get that Normandy blend in there.
Yeah, get the Normandy. I love the Normandy blend.
I could live off the Normandy blend.
I love the Normandy blend. That's my favorite. And then we dip into that animal stuff. I think that we're supposed to have milk. I think we're supposed to have cheese. I think all that stuff is fantastic.
Yeah.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
Berries.
But...
Feed me raspberries all day.
I love that, man. But I think that we could all agree that when you create an industry that is based off of just like the gratification.
Yeah.
Right? When we're loading up that meat with sugar, which is bizarre to me, making patties out of it.
Yep.
And we're slaughtering these animals wholesale by the thousands and thousands and thousands every year. Do you think that pisses God off a little bit? I do.
Yeah.
I don't think he likes that. You know what I mean? I don't think that he's okay with us going in and growing these things just to have a Big Mac. I don't think that it was set up that way, that we're supposed to be doing things that way.
Yeah.
And that's not to, again, I eat meat every day. Yeah, no. I'm partaking in this.
I enjoy my bacon.
I enjoy my bacon. I got bacon in my fridge, man. Local bacon.
Yep.
Well, you do too, right?
Yeah, I do. Yeah,
we got
we
local
both
stuff
from the same guy.
Yeah, okay,
that's
right.
We had a whole pig slaughtered. Yeah,
Yep, that's right.
I had. Well, we're probably down to a quarter of a pig at this point. So therefore, we've eaten.
I know. Yeah,
a good portion of our pig.
Right.
Yep.
But and I almost wonder if that's kind of what it's talking about. Like, I don't know. I'm kind of exploring this with you guys.
Exactly.
Right? Where it's
it's funny. Like, you can't help but get into the reasons why.
Right.
Even though you just take it for what it says.
Yeah.
But you have to kind of. Part of it is trying to figure it out.
Right. Exactly.
A lot of the nutrition stuff I've studied has been that so much more health comes from diversity in what you eat.
Right.
A lot of people don't get that option. A lot of people grow up in a place where they only eat rice.
Yeah.
And maybe a little fish or something, on the side.
If you're in North Korea, you have to go for the grasshopper to get the protein.
Exactly. Yeah. And like you said, there's not an unequal distribution of food. Mm-hmm. The only reason people starve is because there's an unequal distribution of freedom.
Right.
Tyranny is what kills people.
Yep.
And when we have the options laid out before us of eating good things, there's such great options out there. There's so many different kinds of foods you can eat. But I think the true spirit of the law, my mother's had to deal with this, is you really have to listen to your body.
Yeah.
You have to figure out how your body reacts to certain kinds of foods, what it rejects, what it takes in. How do you build up any kind of a resistance to what's going on in the world if you can't take time to listen to your own self as your body reacts to, hey, Taco Bell, maybe not the best thing.
It's not working for me.
Because that toilet gets blasted.
That's what I'm saying, man. It's like that one's an obvious one.
Well, and dairy, cheese, like that could be great for you until you're lactose intolerant.
Exactly.
And then it's not so great for you.
Yep.
And so the culturing of ourself into recognizing what is good or bad for our bodies individually, I think, is the high law of the word of wisdom.
Yes.
There's the low law, don't eat these 10 things. There's the mid law, which is, well, also try to be good about this stuff. There's the high law, the celestial law, which is eat truly what is good.
Yeah. And I'm glad we got here, because that, for me, anytime that you are going to God to get personal answers on how you should live your life, you're stepping into the higher realm of what God wants for you, right?
And it really is that way, like I say, for my mother, where she's actually trying spiritually to understand how her body's reacting to each thing. She's praying about it every time. Like, this is a legit process of spiritual growth that she's had. And I wish I was there. Like, I'm still struggling to figure out, like, why am I tired here and there? And I just assume it's because I'm working hard,
And we're getting old.
Yeah. But I think
trying to isolate all the factors.
Right? And along with all this, again, back to the secret combinations, what are we told to do during this pandemic to prevent disease? Stay in your house. Don't communicate with anyone. In Australia, don't talk to your neighbor.
Yeah.
Right? Like, stay in your house and become as isolated as humanly possible and subsist off what we give you in your daily ration. The lack of recognition that science has for the health of the body from sunlight exposure and the electrical atmospheres that we exist in is criminal. The fact that we are conditioned psychologically to fear other people and we think it's beneficial to our health, like, it's causing a higher suicide rate than we've ever recorded.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And how much is that good for your health? Right.
And a shout out to Australia, to our brothers and sisters there, our cousins across the pond there. We're praying for you guys, man.
Very really living in religious persecution right now.
We're praying for you guys. God bless you.
Mm-hmm. The world has entered a stage where tyranny is being practiced in the open and on TV. If you can bring yourself to look past the regular news.
Yeah.
Then you'll see this tyranny in full force, and it is a tyranny that is opposed to your health. Mm-hmm. These governments are actually waging a war against your good health. through their policies.
The mask is good for you, but the baton is wonderful. It's much better for you. The baton to the face is way better for your health.
Right.
Interesting motivation there.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so when we get all, like you say, when you get all down to this, we spiritually should be discerning these events and these instructions. And when we ask, it isn't just ask your doctor what's good for your health. You got to figure out if your doctor's in tune with the Spirit.
Yeah.
Because there's evil doctors, just like there's evil drug companies and evil governments. Like, we have to realize that there are some people out there who do not have your interest at heart in every aspect of the world, that Satan influences and corrupts everything. And he wants to infiltrate every religion, every organization, every college, everything has a weakness that he laughs and mocks how easy it is to exploit. And all of us, when we recognize, I think very much along with this same, going back to the scriptures, right? When we actually spiritually can get ourselves where we're eating good food, where we're isolating the bad, where we're not participating in the secret combination food stuff, we get the benefits. We get the blessings. So you'll find wisdom and great treasures of knowledge, even hidden treasures.
Yeah.
That is, your mind needs to be in a healthy place to be open to learn.
Yeah.
And that's where, like, for me, learning about the government influence over mind control and hypnosis and suggestibility and all the manipulation that goes on, when we can separate from that, we really can open our mind to the things of God. That's how the word of wisdom applies to your knowledge, is because that's where the secret combinations are trying to target you. They're trying to corrupt your knowledge of health, of good things for you.
Mm-hmm. And there's very much a tie-in here, talking about the secret combinations and stuff like that, and talking about how the word of wisdom will be a protection against that.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Warn and forewarn.
Mm-hmm. And in what's the word? Yeah, I guess in consequence of those evil men, it mentions the destroying angel at the very end.
Yeah.
And it's almost jarring when you read that, because you're like,
at the very last
what?
verse.
You know what I mean? It's, oh, by the way, the destroying angel passed by.
How does that apply?
You know?
Yeah. I'll just go ahead and read it. And I, the Lord, give unto them a promise that the destroying angel shall pass them by as the children of Israel and not slay them. Amen.
So why would that come into play at the end of the word of wisdom? Because, like I say, it's jarring almost. You're like, what?
Yeah, especially, I mean, it may not seem crazy for us now, but when he first got this, when it's like, hey, this is sent by way of greeting. And then the destroying angel.
And the destroying angel.
So, yeah, it's very stark contrast to basically the entire message.
Yeah.
Right?
I've got a theory, but you go first.
So, what, like we have specific instances where destroying angels have been mentioned throughout Scripture, right?
Okay.
The obvious one that we're going to go back to is the one that it references to is the children of Israel.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Right?
Exodus.
Mm-hmm. The reason why they celebrate the Passover.
Yeah, the lamb's blood.
Yes, the lamb's blood.
On the doorpost of the lintel.
Exactly, right?
The plate symbolizes...
The plate symbolizes plates. Inside joke.
A paper plate. but you know, there have been other instances as well. Going back to the Old Testament, there was one where, you know, Isaiah basically goes to the king and says, look, don't worry, the Lord is not going to allow Assyria to come in and curb stomp you guys, right? Mm-hmm. And the Lord protected them and sent the destroying angel to wipe out the army of the Assyrians. And that happened, right?
Yeah.
So it's also prophesied in Revelations that there would be 4 destroying angels.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, pour out their vial upon the earth, right? Yeah.
And going back to what the prophets have said, you can go back and see where even Joseph Smith was like, yeah, this is happening now. Mm-hmm. They've been loosed, right? I'll read the quote here. The Lord revealed to Joseph Smith the prophet and said that angels were standing in the temple in heaven, holding in their hands sharp sickles and crying unto God day and night, saying, "Let us go down and reap down the fields." Doesn't that kind of put goosebumps in you? Like, yeah. I now bear testimony to this assembly that day has come. These destroying angels are sent forth to visit the earth and have commenced to pour out the judgments of God upon the wicked, and will continue until the scene is wound up and all fulfilled that God has promised. Their judgment awaits the wicked. In sum, the eternal, everlasting, and holy priesthood, and its influence will provide protection and salvation from God's destroying angels to many of the earth's inhabitants in the last days.
Well, sounds like something out of Constantine.
Yeah, I know, right? Yeah, it does. It sounds like...
It's like, hearing that, it's almost like these angels, they're up there and they're crying for the opportunity to cleanse the world of the terrors, basically,
wicked,
right?
Yeah.
And so
I think it's cosmological.
By not being tied in with these things, you don't get to be claimed by the destroying angels, I guess, is kind of the inference there, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, if some of my suspicions are correct, as we see New Heaven, New Earth come back and world-changing events literally on a planetary scale with other planets being involved, one of the things that Anthony Larson has in his books, he talks about some of these Exodus events, and that other people have also theorized some of these events were pollutions from other planets as they approached.
Mm-hmm.
And you can imagine, like, all the water on Earth turning blood red and killing all the fish. That was an ionized tail of a comet-like planet, Venus approaching.
Yeah.
So if
a natural answer to all
exactly
this stuff.
Natural law, God uses natural law to fulfill prophecies.
Yeah.
So if these angels are planets, if these angels are for destroying events, and that's where Joseph Smith talked about the Earth having lost mass 4 times. So if you have 4 sections of Earth returning for the restoration of all things, then you have each of them merging again with Earth, providing some kind of calamity along with it as they come. And Wilford Woodruff had a vision where he saw the Salt Lake Valley, and it was covered in some kind of odd color of dust. I don't know exactly the dream he had, but everyone was safe. They were all staying in their house. No one dared leave their house, and all the streets were empty.
Pixie dust.
And then he went out to, he was carried by the Spirit or something out to, like, in New York. And people were dead all over in the streets. And someone would run out of a building just long enough to pickpocket the dead corpse in front of them, and they'd be dead before they got back in the building.
Yeah, I remember hearing about that somewhere, yeah.
And the calamities that could come that would pollute the air, pollute the water, pollute the... Well, hopefully we've got our food storage, because we may have to stay in our house, like the Isaiah verse says.
Yeah, wormwood, right?
Yeah, the only safety is in your home.
Yeah.
Huh.
So some of these events of that destroying angel could literally be there is a destroying effect on the whole earth, and really your survival depended on maybe food storage to a good degree and maybe your general health.
Yeah. That
you kept yourself free of addictions and you don't have to leave your house and you can subsist. Or some kind of chemical effects going on, and because you refrained from some kind of an addiction, alcoholism maybe your liver can function in a good way to purify your body, where the people who were alcohol addicts all die. You know, there's things like this that when you understand the natural laws that govern everything, a lot of this starts to make more sense, or at least become theoretically plausible.
Well, and two, like, I don't know if you guys have ever heard this, but what does everybody have in their food storage? What's the main staple?
Wheat.
Flour?
Wheat.
Rice.
Right, when you can make flour out of the wheat.
Yeah.
Rice, you have beans, right?
Mm-hmm.
Have you guys ever tried to eat that?
No. Like, our bodies are not conditioned for it.
Yeah.
So...
I got a lot of boxed pasta. Because I know I can eat that. Give me some water to boil.
Oh, I've
Curtis is thinking, man.
I seriously.
yeah, I've talked to people who are like, I have a ton of cracked wheat, but there's no way I could adjust my body to eat it.
Well, that's I recently like, Mom, I want you to show me how to make bread because I don't know what to do with this flour. If we get to that point, right? I need to know how to use this.
I'll send you a recipe that'll knock your socks.
There we go. So otherwise, I'm putting bread with or flour with water like the pioneers.
You're making a Johnny cake.
Exactly. Like, what are you gonna do? Make an unleavened cake.
So I used to be a much heavier man. I think we've covered this before, right?
Yeah.
I lost about 100 pounds.
Yep.
And I did that by looking to the word of wisdom.
Yeah.
I said, okay, what can I do? That adjustment, because I eat all sorts of grains, right? I eat a lot of wheat. I eat a lot of oats and stuff like that. And I eat a lot of beans. I eat beans every single day. I eat... I know, man. Beans. The magical fruit.
But I get it.
That is a true principle. But the thing about it, like, adjusting to that, there was when I was starting to eat beans, because I eat about a cup of cooked beans every day, along with either rice or millet or something like that. Mm-hmm. I mix it up because I have to, for fun. Yeah.
Yep.
But I will eat black beans or pinto beans every single day, a cup. Mm. And when you first start doing that, you honestly are like, I think I'm dying. You're like, I think so, like, something is happening inside of me.
The digestion cycle is a little rough.
And I don't know that I can survive this. And I've even actually heard that if you have to go from your current American diet or whatever you're eating, right? Whatever we eat is not very good. Our average diet sucks.
Yeah, that's very true.
If you go from that directly to having to eat like our pioneers did, there will be people who will literally die.
Yeah.
They will literally die from that shock to their system.
Make sure you could actually live on your food.
Yes. So maybe incorporate that in, and that gives credence to the word of wisdom.
Yeah, it does.
Really does.
It's like, hey, if you want the destroying angel to pass by,
that's a good. I didn't think of that interpretation.
Maybe eat what's in your food storage. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's cheap.
Store the good stuff and then learn to eat it.
Yes, exactly. Get your body used to it.
And these events, they're not going to be, whenever they come, they're not going to be like you literally can't leave your house for a decade.
Yeah.
The food storage we have as commanded hopefully will be enough.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe it's you can't leave your house for a couple months, right? And you get through it. And then the world you enter into after that is totally crazy. You gotta... We're very much not prepared for, like, let's say an EMP event.
Yeah.
Living without power, living off grid, having to subsist that way, according to government studies, kills between 50 and 90% of the population should power go out for a year. Now, that same study in Mexico, 25% of the population. Mm-hmm. Because they're used to poverty.
Yep. Business as usual. They're like, what? Oh,
power went out. What's power? So those Amish, they've got something figured out.
They'll be set.
Yeah, life won't change.
Yep,
but
they'll be laughing at us, us English, right?
Yeah.
So I think there's a lot of mental preparation to all of that too. Don't waste all of your time with the harlot of World of Warcraft.
Yes. Yes, it's true.
So that if the power goes out, you don't have a psychological break.
Yeah.
So I listened to last night. I listened to it 3 times in a row because it just blew my mind. I listened to Bruce R. McConkie talk about what's it called? The talk is entitled "Stand Independent Above All Things," I believe. Have you guys heard that?
I don't think I've heard this.
You should listen to it. I'll send it to you guys. Phenomenal. And it talks about a lot of this stuff, about like destroying angel type of stuff, right?
Uh-huh.
And he basically says in there, he's like, look, like, and this ties into the word of wisdom, where he's like, look, like, we're not saying that Zion will completely have all these things that we're talking about, the scourge, right? Mm-hmm. The destroying angels, like, not every single member of the church is going to be passed by. It's just not going to happen.
It didn't happen with Israel either.
Yeah, it didn't happen with Israel either.
Yeah.
it's just one of those things. Like, it's going to get either because of disobedience or whatever. You know what I mean? Even if that's not the case.
Multiplicity of factors.
Not
then it's
everyone's
like,
going to...
it's not your fault either. Like,
Exactly.
if it's not your fault that you died leading up to the second coming, don't feel
all
bad.
is well in Zion. Yeah, happy day, all is well.
Happy day, yep.
But he talks about there, he says, but, you know, he even throws out nuclear holocaust in there, man.
Really?
It's crazy, yeah. He did not mince words in there, but he's basically
he projected like a, it will come.
Yeah, he did. And he basically is just like, look, like, for thus saith the Lord's scourge shall pass over by night and by day, and the report thereof shall vex all people. Yea, it shall not be stayed until the Lord come. Nevertheless, Zion shall escape if she observe to do all things whatsoever I have commanded her, saith the Lord. So there's safety in Zion. And like you're saying, even if you end up falling to the scourge, right? If a destroying angel accidentally gets you with that scythe as he's cutting down the tares, you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. It's going to be okay.
Yeah. God saw that.
It's going to look horrible to us. It'll be okay. In the end, right. It'll all work out the way it's supposed to, right?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, you can imagine how little faith it would take if literally every person who ever lived the word of wisdom was fine, and literally every person who didn't died.
Yeah.
Like, that doesn't take a lot of faith.
No, yeah.
You know, it's pretty obvious. But if it's something where, well, everything with the gospel, people can make assumptions and accusations and no, it's not being fulfilled. That prophecy's not being fulfilled based on it not being some perfect cut and dry assumption.
Yeah. Absolutely true. And if those destroying angels are active, which we know they are, right? We know there's been like 1,000% increase. And I think that study was done in 2010, 2012, something like that.
Yeah.
They said the last 50 years there's been a 1,000% increase in natural disasters.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That's insane.
Yeah.
And we know it's getting worse and worse.
We're not even affected by it anymore.
Yeah.
You know?
It just is what, like, oh, yeah.
We're like, oh, there's another one.
Haiti got rocked by another one, huh?
It mostly doesn't get reported.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because there's
It's not news anymore.
And it sounds biblical. You can see why they'd want to suppress that.
Yeah,
It sounds biblical.
Yep, definitely.
Like, holy crap, you know? Unless it's something that you can't hide, right? Like hurricanes and stuff like that, but we're watching this stuff play out right now, man. And it's insane. Like, if there was ever a time to me, the word of wisdom, that's an easy one, man. Get that low-hanging fruit wherever you can get it, dude. Yeah. This is an easy one. You know what I mean? At least do that bare minimum stuff.
Yeah.
Because it's like, if that's the difference between you making it, you know what I mean, and not making it, like for you being around to see your kids and grandkids and stuff like that, that's an easy one, man.
Yeah.
You know, and it's only going to benefit you. There's only benefit to living that.
Yep.
Well, and like the scripture says, there will be literal miracles in the way that you're preserved, or you know, for a lot of people, the effort to be good is enough. You know, trying to do every commandment as the letter of the law says, even if you fall short, God does compensate. That you shall run and not be weary, shall walk and not faint. Unfortunately, that does imply some exercise.
Yeah. That's why I eat meat, because I lift weights. I tried doing it off of beans and it didn't work, man.
Your body was crapping out.
I was just like, oh my gosh, I feel terrible.
See, you went a little bit higher, right? You went to the higher level. I was telling you, you know what, like, for Alan, you need a little bit of protein.
But I think...
or it's all vanity, because I'm... You know what I mean?
Maybe it's the other Or you're just weak.
There you go.
Let's go that route. You just suck,
That's
Alan.
probably what it is.
But I think that verse also connects to, and I forget the D&C chapter, but where your body is essentially like made whole through the priesthood.
Right, yeah.
You know, I think that's a very real thing, that as you try to do everything, there is some spiritual compensation that occurs because God needs you to perform a work. And we don't live in a world that can provide for every need.
Yep.
And so when people have to deal with hard things, especially when they're people who God is relying on to do those hard things, and those people are willing to and they're trying to, he compensates. And he prevents us from getting sick as often. He keeps the ulcers away from the stress of having to preside over corrupt people. And so the more I've progressed in life, and studying this week, wow, the word of wisdom is a true principle.
Absolutely.
I mean, for our day, inspired by God, every word of that thing is so much deeper than I ever comprehended, and I'm grateful for it. I know that this church is true. I'll say that in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen. So, I'm going to, back to what Alan was saying with him losing a lot of weight. He's been a really good example. Because I remember when we used to get together for guy nights, we had big greasy burgers. Yep. We had big greasy cheese sticks with as much meat as we could fit on it, right?
Fat Jacks.
And now occasionally when we get together, it's zucchini pizza, And we have our plain yogurt with our oats and honey.
Yep.
And I love it. He's the one that turned us on to the Normandy blend, which is what we like to have with like every meal we have.
I always feel bad when we do so because I'm like, hey, you want some zucchini pizza?
He feels bad, but I love it because this is something that I am struggling with. Like, and I'm a slow mover. You're much quicker on the pounce than I've been. So you look a lot different than you did. I look maybe a little bit about the same.
No, you're fine. You look great.
I'm just saying you're a good example of how it's actually worked. And for me, that's very much like going back to what you're talking about, like when you're talking about your mission president in response to missionaries. In my mind, like I knew exactly what you were talking about because I was on the mission with people who took this thing to crazy levels. Right. And it was a common thing I saw.
They were making their companions not buy meat.
Exactly. And that's a common thing. I saw people go on both extremes as I studied this. Yep. People on saying like, hey, we should stop eating pork now. Yeah. Like going that far. We should go back to the law of Moses. Mm-hmm. And then other people going the other way where we have like, members of the 12, drinking beer, Right. So there was this back and forth. Mm-hmm. And I get it because this is difficult. Each one of us is a different person.
Wasn't J. Golden Kimball drinking coffee?
Oh, yeah.
An apostle.
Amongst other things, yes. Yeah. He had a few strikes against... He just repented too fast.
Yeah, right? Yep, exactly. They keep trying to excommunicate me, but I repent too fast.
I'm only just calling because of my lineage.
Exactly. So just thinking about like, okay, how do we navigate this, right? And I had John 7, verses 16 and 17 kept coming to my mind. Jesus answered them and said, my doctrine is not mine, but his that sent me. If any man will do his will, he shall know of the doctrine, whether it be of God or whether I speak of myself. And for me, meaning, hey, you want to know about this stuff? You try it. Mm-hmm. You figure it out. Go through the effort. Sometimes revelation is doing. And in the process of doing, you'll find out whether or not these things are true for yourself. So, if you want to try, do the meat sparingly thing, or maybe you think the tea and coffee thing's full of crap. Figure it out for yourself. I don't want to advocate for people losing their temple recommends, but there's something to be said for if you're having struggles in understanding it, you need to do the will. You need to go through it and put in the effort, and then the Lord will make known his will to you. Some of us, and I've been them, sometimes I got to drop the TV on my head a few times to realize I should stop messing with it, get too close to it, and then I know, then I can leave it alone. Sometimes the Lord sends me down a path of like, okay, you want to see why you shouldn't do this? This is why. And sometimes it's a matter of like, try living the higher law, and you'll see that it's the better way of living. And so for each and every one of us who've been struggling with this, and I saw, this is hotly debated everywhere you go talk about it. Yep. People will...
It's fun.
They're either justify or they will rationalize the way they want to live, and they'll discount or whatever. I get it. It's no fun trying to figure out what you should and shouldn't eat sometimes. Yes. And people just like trying to justify their way all the time. Honestly, just take it to the Lord, do his will, and figure it out. And the Lord will make known his will to you. And then you will find the balance in your life. You will find where the Lord wants you to. Like, Kimberly, your mom is a great example of this to me.
Yeah.
Like how she lives her life, how her diet is, and how she's figured it out. That is personal revelation, 100%. And that's a great example to me as well. So take the time, and the Lord will make his will known to you. and then you can walk as children of light in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
So pull up a beer and
Exactly. Don't get twisted, people.
get yourself some long bottom
Figure
weed
it out
there,
for
and
yourself.
in your pipe.
Don't take my word for it, but
Heck yeah, man! That's a throwback.
Yeah.
If you get that, God bless you. So, like we're saying, the word of wisdom. I had tried so many different things to get control of my eating habits. And like I tried all these fad diets and stuff like that. And at some point I was like, okay, this isn't working.
I understand that feeling.
Yeah, it's like, this just isn't working, And so, I obviously I have a testimony and stuff like that. I know, you know what I mean? I know that God loves us. I know He wants what's best for us, So I said, can we go to the scriptures? And that led me, of course, to the word of wisdom. And then I went and I studied Shadrach, Meshach, Abednego, right? When they
Yes.
were, basically had their word of wisdom testimony in the Old Testament. You should totally read that story, by the way.
Yeah, I was going to mention that, but we don't have time.
I was too. But fascinating. And when I took that approach to it, it's funny because everybody around me that I would talk to about it was like, there's too many carbs in the word of wisdom. That was what, like literally, members of the church.
Yep.
They were saying, oh, there's too many carbs in the word of wisdom. There's no way that's going to work. Like, you're not going to lose weight that way, yeah. And I was like, you know what? I'm fat anyway. Like, I'm going to give this a try.
I'm already rock bottom.
I'm already there, yeah. I'm rock bottom.
It's like it's all the science is so twisted.
I
It's
know.
like how eggs are evil for you, then they're good for you.
Exactly.
Salt.
Butter, and, yeah.
Yep.
Just wait 10 years and it'll change.
Yep.
Oh, it's the sugars that are the worst.
I know,
for fat,
right?
Not carbs.
It's true, but it's and so I took that approach, and I'll be danged, I lost weight. You know what I mean? That was completely and utterly basing my diet off of the word of wisdom. Mm-hmm. I lost weight, and I felt great, and wound up. I still keep that. Like I say, no matter what I eat in the day, I'm always eating whole grains. I'm always eating beans and stuff like that. And just doing that, I think, putting that effort into it, like you guys are saying, you got to put effort into it, right? Mm-hmm. As drill sergeant would say, vitamin E for effort, right? You got to have the effort put into it, and you have to be trying. And if you do that, the Lord will bless you. Yeah. He will bless you. Up to and including the destroying angels staying that sickle on you, right?
Yes. However that works,
right? Your specific stock will see through the day. And I know it's a correct principle. There is absolutely something to it. There's blessings attached, supernatural blessings attached to that. And I say that in the name of Jesus Christ, amen.
Amen.
The more you know.